Hey, Bowie Manning here, alongside Chris Cotillo from MassLive, and Sox lose this series, a critical series, to the Yankees, 5-3 here. Make a late push, bring in Aroldis Chapman, bring in Garrett Whitlock, manage with some urgency here, but still end up losing this one with hitting issues continuing since Roman Anthony went down, as well as some pitching lapses early in this game from Brian Bayo. But I think the bigger story right now with the team is the hitting.
Yeah, I mean, we're 3 days, the last 3 days dating back to Wednesday in West Sacramento. 3 for 31 with runners in scoring position. That's not going to get it done. 2 for 16 on Wednesday. Well, I think 0 for 8 last night and 1 for 7 tonight. I mean, that's just not going to be, a way to score a run. We saw them have 9 hits against Max Fried today. That's not bad. He's obviously a guy who's been dominant for most of this season. And Bayo was uneven. They were in an early hole and they couldn't get out of it. That's the story here, easy.
So the state of the team, they're probably going to make the playoffs.
It just got tighter.
It just got a lot tighter. They're probably not going to have home field in that wild card matchup against the Yankees if they're able to stay in that little bracket. But now the concern is slipping down into a Seattle-Houston series, which I think would be tough for them. Mm-hmm. And then Texas is in play 2 games back to actually take their playoff spot here. So you asked Alex Cora before the game about matching up with lefties, going into a game against Max Fried, and he had an interesting answer to that. Here's what he said.
I think we should stop talking October, to be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we have to play better. I'm not saying we're in a bad spot, but I think, we have to wait, to see if October is part of this.
So how did you take that? It was an interesting comment.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just wanted to make sure that nobody in the building, whether the people on the beat, players in the clubhouse, the coaching staff, was putting the cart before the horse. I thought that was pretty interesting. He said something similar in Sacramento to me on Wednesday or Tuesday. I asked, does it feel like tryout time for who's going to make the roster, who's going to be in whatever roles? He said, no, we're trying to win games. Like, this isn't clinched yet. And, that answer was a little bit more performative when the gap was 4.5 games, when the gap was 5.5 games. Now that it's 2, it's real. If they lose tomorrow and Texas wins, they're a game off the pace with 12 to go. A bad day here, a bad day there, and it's a different story. Texas is going to play Houston. I think Houston plays Seattle. So, the Red Sox need to start winning games. And, 6-8 in the last 14, just lost this series, 3-3 on the road trip against 2 quote-unquote non-contenders, even though Arizona's playing well. I think Alex Cora realizes, hey, look at the standings, number one, but also look at the roster we're putting out there. Look at some of the guys who are in the lineup. It's not a lock, and this is real. We need to keep fighting. We need to keep playing well, and we've seen that bear out over the last 2-3 days.
And I felt some of that in the comment, too. I think part of it was a wake-up call.
Right.
Try to rally the team, get them going.
And I thought Bregman postgame today was, too.
Yeah.
Saying, we've been super amped up. The crowd is what it is over the last couple of days, but for these young guys, sometimes less is more. I think he's a guy who's played in 8-9 straight postseasons. A lot of guys on this team have not, and I think he's saying, all right, slow it down. Don't be amped up. Stop pressing. We're talented, which they're a lot more talented with Roman Anthony and some of these other guys they've lost. At the same time, they do have to kind of have that less is more mentality. We saw Cora be aggressive managing today, and still the pieces didn't fall in place.
And they've lost 5 of 9 now since Anthony went down.
Yep.
You expected to be some slippage. That 8-1 game the following day was pretty shocking with the bullpen game and all of that. So there's issues all over the place. But Cora tried to emphasize when Anthony went down, there's still enough here. It's not all about Anthony. It's actually about the pitching this season, which I don't disagree with. But then you start getting into the bullpen games and having 3 reliable starters and knowing you're going to be in trouble 2 out of the 5 days, trying to extend rest. I mean, they're just stretched thin right now. And it's hard to put that on a manager. You're definitely putting it on the roster construction to some degree. And there's an injury excuse here.
Yeah.
But this team shouldn't have crumbled just because Anthony went down. And Bray used out a couple guys here, but they were in a good place, and now they're in a shaky position.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can point to the trade deadline with that, where they add Dustin May and they add Steven Matz. Everybody looked at it as an underwhelming deadline. May was okay for a little while, and then obviously not the last few. Matz has been generally good, but where that hurts you, I think, is when, other pieces fall off the roster and you don't have those guys taking those spots. I think you look at, who has to take those spots. Early was great the other night. Tolley was great in his debut. Kyle Harrison has promise, but that's a lot to put on, rookies or guys you just got in a trade. And I think also it's a lot to put on the top 3 starters. Like, we look at this puzzle like, all right, well, you know, they're short in 4 and 5 and there's bullpen games, but at least they have 1, 2, and 3. But what happens if one of your guys like today doesn't pitch well? What happens if Crochet goes out tomorrow and isn't himself, or in a playoff game isn't himself? We're kind of looking at them like, oh, they're going to be locks. They're going to give you 6 shutout. That's not the case, especially when the wear and tear is catching up.
Do you think the expectation for this team is you got to make the playoffs, or are the injuries and everything else that's happened going to give them some leeway there?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, the playoff chances as of this morning are still 90%. As of 2 days ago, 96, 97%. And you know what? Like, they're not 2-8 in the last 10 or like 2-20. The Rangers have won 6 in a row. The Mariners have won 7 or 8 in a row. These other teams are pushing. And I think that's also a result of, like, the deadline. The Rangers get Merrill Kelly. The Mariners get Naylor, Suarez, the guys they got. So maybe the talent and the roster's catching up. But I think the urgency starts tomorrow. At this point, I think it's not panic button time yet, but it's inching closer to that. And 2 games is 2 games. It's not much.
It's a Crochet game. It's a series finale. We'll have coverage here of the final Sox-Yankees game of the season. Potential playoffs preview still. It could be those 2 teams in the wild card matchup here, and it hasn't gone well for the Sox here. Chris Cotillo, MassLive, check out his coverage. Thanks for stopping by. Great to have you on scene here on the Fenway Report. And I'm Bobby Manning, and we'll talk to you. Subscribe, Red Sox Clubhouse, as well as CLNS Media and Red Sox CLNS on Twitter.